previously with many years ago with ECSA, the head of registrations and CPD. So most of the MTM people have met Johan. Johan's just coming in to have a listen. Johan, could you just mute your mic just in case if there's any background noise?
Sure.
And Kagiso, your mic is open. If you could mute that, please. Thank you very much. If everyone can just mute their mics just to stop anything that unintentional. There's just a little bit. I'm just quickly looking through the. Okay, I see some of the EWC ladies are starting to come in. Yes, there they go. Okay, I think that's great. I just want to give a little bit of time to get the EWC ladies in. There's some important updates that we want to do. So there's a nice nice group of numbers coming in now. Tom, while we just, so it's not all Phil doing banter, anything from Friedrich or Kim or Tom or Rob, anything that's happened that's worthwhile sort of sharing with the team in the meantime?
You need to pass geography as well.
Here we go.
Especially if you're in an engineering organization, you need to not put parts of the country in other provinces where they don't belong.
And who is guilty of all of that?
Sorry, it's a bit of a, I just put Friedrich through a dental root canal treatment with no injections for the pain. So we're trying to get a map of South Africa with critical information on it for Big Five as a backdrop to a SASI stand, and we're working with PR and marketing people who just randomly locate cities and towns and roads and goodness knows what else. Yeah, Friedrich is very long suffering. That's why he's good with his grandkids.
Don't talk about root canal. I've just come from the dentist, so I'm dribbling all down my front over here because I've got a numb mouth. So and yeah, I don't want to keep anybody else too long. Tom, just sorry, while we're talking about that, if we've got that chance to update the Whitby and the MASELULEKANE thing, I'll get that through to you in Sibongile. So that'll be great if we can get that. We're up to 30, so that's good. Okay, I can see a few more of the EWC ladies are coming in now. So MTM guys, please just be patient. This is a really, really important session, and we're down to the last 30 days now. Essentially, we're into sort of 30 days plus a few where you are able to start your application process, and we've got sort of like a kind of a countdown clock of things we want to achieve in that time to make sure we're here. Today is going to be really critical to introduce you to who's arguably, next to Tom and Friedrich, the legend in South Africa with regards to the ECSA understanding of the standards and the various policies and the interpretation of the policies and things like that. So all those questions about word count and lengths and outcomes and things, today's a good day. Kim's then has undertaken to do another session for us, which is a sort of almost an interactive Q&A session. So the last of the questions that are coming in, and I'm just going to show you quickly how we're trying to consolidate the large group so we are on point with who needs help. There's still some information needed and outstanding, so we will just have a very brief chat about those, and then we'll get going. And then we've also got, on Monday, we've got a dry run or a mock interview with Takalani, who is, I think, in here, or will be joining. I'm not sure if Takalani's in here yet.
She is in full. She's in full. Yeah.
Okay. I can't see her name here, but that's great if Takalani's here.
Her and her AR buddy are both in.
Okay. So Takalani was in the other session just now. So Takalani's, she's got, a huge round of applause to Takalani. She's got through the technical review. She was, as you know, she was able to submit in February at the last moment with Simpiwe and with a little bit of me and a lot of Simpiwe and a little bit of Sakadi and a little bit of Tom. She's got through the technical submission, and she's going to do a mock interview with myself, Tom, Kim, Friedrich, and Jones on Monday night. And Takalani's been very kind to say that she's happy for us to record it and we will then share it with everybody, because we'll treat it as a proper mock interview, and there'll be some great feedback from the various different people that are going to be the assessors in it, and that'll be really useful, I think, hopefully to everybody as we kind of get down to the wire. Okay, so Tom, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to quickly share.
So Phil, maybe one thing for those that are in the Gauteng region, on the 4th to the 6th of June is the Big 5 Construct Expo. It's at the Gallagher Estate. Entrance is free. On the first day, which is the 4th, the Tuesday, there will be an infrastructure and consultancy in Durban. Friedrich is championing that, which Sasi and other Vishal Lachman and a few others are presenting. That evening there is an awards function in which Takalani has been nominated for something or other. I think she's running out of wall space for all these awards. So if you are in the region, visit the Sasi stand or come and listen and engage with Friedrich and the team on sustainable infrastructure. On the Wednesday, there is a mentorship session between Friedrich, myself, and Dlawsi. I'll be presenting the MASELULEKANE slot, and Friedrich will be dealing with the puzzles and building a career one piece at a time. And then on the Thursday, we've got a woman in leadership session, which will be Sakadi, followed by Inno Innocentia on Whitby, followed by the lady in question, Takalani herself, talking about her journey to registration, her experiences both with Whitby and with MASELULEKANE. So please support those initiatives if you're in and around Johannesburg, and go and look at all the other things that are happening at the Gallagher Estate. Thanks, Phil.
Just come and check.
That's great. Someone's got a very noisy background, but that's great, Tom. Well done. That's absolutely fantastic, and getting the initiatives out there. So I just want to, Louise, I can't share, and it's not the end of the world, because Jones's session is much more important. But can you just make sure that Jones and I can share? Are you able to do that, or Tom, are you able to do that?
No, Louise would have to. Louise, if you right click. If you right click on the 3 dots to the right of the name, you should be able to change Jones to a presenter if he's come in as a registration option.
And me as well.
Okay,
Louise.
I will check.
Okay. Otherwise, what I'll do, Phil, is I also see my presenter, my share button is also grayed out. Otherwise, you'll have to go into settings, Louise.
Okay, now I think Jones is done. So let me just do full.
I can see Jones has migrated up to presenters. Yeah. Thanks, Sparkles. Louise. Ish. Sorry, Kim. Okay, hey, I can share. There, here I go. And let me pour my heart out to you. Okay, all right, I'm just going to show you very quickly. We're not going to spend long on this. Please, no women or children were hurt in the making of this movie. This is not intended to put anybody on the spot, but I want to show you where we are and what we're trying to do, and we've still got bits and pieces coming through. Louise, I see there's a Miranda that's come through. Oh, sorry, you're on top of it. Thank you. Thanks, Louise. What I want to show is just very quickly what we're doing with all the submission readiness reports. So please don't in any way feel exposed. If you see something that you feel exposes you, it's not intended to do that. What I'm trying to do is, let's just quickly go here. We'll just look at the SICE ones. So what we're doing is we're grouping everyone either into the June 24, Jan 25 or July 25 groups. And then I've just used a very primary color coding system that if I feel that they're on track, if they're a little bit behind and need a nudge, if they're very behind and we need to have a chat and maybe change their date of expectancy, and if there's a big problem. So that's a big problem is addressed if there's, for instance, if there's no mentor or there's no supervisor, no referee, those are sort of kind of things like that. So then just to sort of show you as an example, That's what something would look like that. So there, Emma's maybe a little bit behind. I've made some notes there about Emma. We have to just check her submission at level E, etc., etc. So let me maybe not go into that one and expose Emma. Let me just talk about this one. Calvin, I believe, is on track. Calvin has been a solid citizen from the day one. So he's going for June. There's obviously all the B18 BDR things that still need to be resolved. Tom can tell us more about that. We've also got Jones in the house, who's working very closely with Tom and Fran on getting that through. But you'll see, this is, to me, this is a great bit of feedback that helps us as the organizers and the facilitators. I can see when they planned, they're 100% complete. So not difficult to mark Calvin as on track over here. He's going to be reviewing his submission date, and Calvin's very active in CHQ and on the app and in the WhatsApp group. So he keeps us on our toes as he hones his submission. He's commented over here that he's busy going through these, so we know exactly where Calvin is, and so that's great. And then obviously we've got others where we've got, if we worried. So we think Nadine's on track, although she's not for the June session. She's on for the Jan session, etc., etc. And then we've got others. The corner over here is a little bit behind, but there's also big gaps in what was returned. So we can't plan with this because you 20% of what? You're obviously only doing one engineering report. You're going to have to do a TEO possibly or not. And so we're struggling a little bit sometimes with stuff that's missing. So we're trying to make sense of that, and how Louise is making sense of that. Let me just show you another view of all of this. This is the EWCTA. So we haven't completed the EWCTA. We haven't done all of these yet, but this is what we're busy going through. So you'll see some people are coming back with, some ladies are coming back with really, really good, useful feedback. And then what Louise is doing is she's helping us get it into something. We've also got a version for the MTM crowd. And it looks like something like this. So this is a very intensive document over here, and it goes it's got everything you were ever going to ask. We've got your attendance, and then it's got a Manzi 1 and then a Manzi 2. So in our view, these are the ladies who we originally intended to get through in June, and you'll see that there's quite a lot of stuff. And then so there are some people who we're going to circle back to, who we're going to take out of these nooks because we're just not getting the information we need, and we can't work with no information, and EWCTA will not recognize them. So we're going to swap these ladies out, and we've got ladies in, you'll see over here in a Manzi 3 where we're getting good information coming through. There's no reason why we can't bump these ladies up into these slots over here. So we have to be a little bit harsh. Just coming out of a Whitby session and hearing all about the male-dominated environment, and I have to be, please accept my choice of language over here, but it's very difficult for us to manage this program if we don't get the information we ask for. So you'll see we have all the engineering reports. We have those of you who are doing TEOs we have a lot of information on the TERs, so some great progress over here, lots of information. The ladies have been great coming through with the expected dates of planned processing and things like that. So we're summarizing this, and every day we get someone else sends us something. So no one is meeting the cutoff dates, which is just making it a little bit difficult. But we're learning as we go, and we're going to take the people both from MTM and SAICI and the Manzi 1 and Manzi 2, and anybody in a Manzi 3 that we think is ready to go, and we're just going to start honing in on that. And so that's really important. So that's just a little bit of a quick update on all of that I wanted to tell you about. Tom, you and I, and we need to just circle in on this quickly. But what I want to do now is introduce you to our rock star for the day. And in fact, it would be inappropriate of me to introduce Jones because he's a new friend. And I would rather let Tom McEwen introduce him because Jones and Tom go back a long way. So, Tom, I'm going to hand over to you, and then if you could then lead Jones in. And then, Jones, ideally, we want to give you as much time as possible. So run about It'll be, what's that? It'll be 4:30 my time, 5:30 your time. Just before that, we can start. Tom, we can look at the timing, because I think with the MTM and with the EWCTA ladies in here, having access to you and Friedrich and Kim and Jones in the same session is just a goldmine. And the recording of this session and the questions and all the rest of it. So the Calvins and the Grants and the Robs and all the guys with all the questions, this is the time to do it. And so Tom, if you could help me manage a Q&A towards the end, that'd be great. But Tom, over to you to introduce Jones. Thanks, Jones. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Phil, and yeah, pleasure to get involved in the Q&A. So look, Jones doesn't really need much introduction if anybody's aware of anything relating to ECSA. He's very involved, both from previously being on ECSA Council and various committees. We've worked together on accreditation when there was a TPAC, that's the Technology Program Accreditation Committee, and a TPQEC, Technology Program Qualification Education Committee, probably for 20 plus years. So Jones and I, that's why we refer to each other as our brothers from other mothers. You'll see our complexions are very different, but we are close enough to be brothers. Jones has been at Pretoria Technikon and now University of Tshwane for most of his working career, although he also has run his own consulting practice. So he does understand industry probably better than many of those that are more on the academic persuasion. Jones currently is a member of council. He is also the deputy chair of the what was called the Education Committee that looks after both the accreditations of universities and obviously other matters relating to qualifications within the Accords. He also serves on many of the IEA committees. So as Phil says, if you want somebody, I always used to joke with him when I met him at the ECSA offices, his boot, he had two briefcases. He had an ECSA briefcase and a TUT briefcase, and he had to make sure he took the right one out of his car. But Jonesy, brother, over to you to please enlighten our friends and colleagues in this session with your wealth of knowledge on all matters ECSA and policies relating to ECSA. Thank you, my brother.
Thanks Jones, much, brother. Jones, just before you go, and Tom, sorry, what I wanted to say, and apologies for the rude interruption, could you please try not to interrupt Jones, and please put your questions in the chat, because then we've got them to record them and we can come back to any that we don't fill. I'll be here, and I know Kim's there as well, and we can try and handle questions while we go, but it's just a really important place that if you have a question and you don't get a chance in the Q&A, make sure it's recorded here so we can come back to it. But Jones, over to you, and thank you, Tom.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Tom, for the great introduction. I really appreciate it, and thanks to everyone. Thanks, Phil, and I see familiar faces as well in the meeting today. Let me just share the presentation. You'll let me know if you are able to see the presentation.
Yep, 100%, looking good.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, when one prepares for this kind of a process, especially the registration, it becomes a difficult one in terms of there's so much. And as I had a chat with you last Friday, Phil, I'm not sure as to how far and where the candidates or our people are at this point in time. But I'm happy that we are meeting today. Even other questions that are not related to the presentation can be brought forward. So we'll take it as such and move on. So what I did here, as I spoke to Phil, we just took one of the categories for registration, which is the professional engineering technologist. But the process is the same. And you'll see I'll be referring to the ECSA documents as they are. So in the presentation, it's more limited. I'll do a lot of the talking, but I expect that we discuss, and I'm happy that you allow the Q&A session, that it be the one that almost run the show. So let's rather move on and take it from there. Is my slide not moving? Okay. So what I have done, I looked at the application form because that's where it matters most in terms of this, and I tried to break down them as per the forms, those that have got the heading and the information that is not maybe related to the presentation, but I'll talk about it. So I broke it down in terms of this. The stem is the same in all the categories for registration because they all go to the same engineering council. It's just that the rank statement might be the difference. So at the beginning, as you can see here, what I've done in terms of this in the introduction, say, let us look at the process for registration. And that is where it matters most. The assessors at ECSA, of which I'm part of, I also train them, and the reviewers in all categories, that is engineering technologist, and engineering technician, have got the same way of looking at the process because we are guided by the policies that I'll touch base as we go along. So let's first start looking at the application form, and I'm happy that Phil referred to those that are ready for applying. When we look at form B1.1, which is the first page of the application form, there it talks about the demographic information of the applicant. Please ensure that all the personal details are correct, and also to have the recent for a passport type of photograph. Your information is known by you, but there's a verification process that is being done by ECSA to make sure that it is the correct person, if I put it that way, that his or her information is the one that is being used in the application form. There's been situations whereby people, because they do copy and paste, they use other people's information, they even forget to change their names. Very important as well, any form of identity, very, very critical, it has to be included. Make sure that it goes hand in hand, and all the names that are put up there should be the names that match the certified copy of the identity. Again, one of the critical parts is the qualifications thereof. Please make sure that the certified copies of all those qualifications that are listed are there. And especially that they are recently, we know the system of certification in the country is not less than 3 months. They have to match that as well. And you'll see as we go along, we'll refer to form B1.3 ARAR, then for the academic record, we'll get there. But at this point in time, the moment when that part is filled, you go to that page whereby this relates to, make sure that that information is there. One of the things that they use as well as at ECSA administration to make sure that the information that is captured is correct is to make sure that all the boxes that are there are ticked and every space that is there is filled. Very critical is the part whereby it has to be initiated in front of the Commissioner of Oaths. It has to be done as such because that is the oath that the person is taking to say that all the information that is placed in the application form is true and correct. If you go to the second page, move further to form B.12, it talks about the previous or current registration or the application details of the person. That is very, very important, and especially on the previous and current registration. ECSA, they use this to check of the previous registration for the billing purposes, that if there's money that is being owed or money maybe that the person has paid over, that can be supplemented. So some people who do not check this, they disadvantage themselves in many cases. This is a very thorough process that they do. So all the information needs to be placed there. What this is about is that if you registered previously in a certain category, indicated. If you are a candidate, please indicate it. And I'll talk about this to show the critical importance of showing that as a candidate and not having it shown that whereby the person was a candidate. Again, membership of the voluntary associations. ECSA recognizes certain voluntary associations in terms of the act, and those ones, please, they need to be mentioned because of there's also that subsidizing across in terms of when you're a member of a voluntary association, and proof thereof is also of paramount importance, and it has to be provided to the letter. When it gets to form B12, moving on, is on page 3, will be about the application fee. This is also very important. The fee, the money needs to be paid before, and it needs to be indicated on the application form. I've taken a liberty to also take the 2024-2025 latest application and annual fees, and we'll just talk about it now. And ECSA does not take cash, so this has to be done electronically. Maybe let me just do justice and go here and talk about it. So you'll see there, and if you just, for example, we start at the candidacy, that this is very, very important to those that maybe might also still be coming in terms of this. If we look here at the candidate categories, if an applicant or a candidate has applied within 1 calendar year from the date of obtaining the recognized the qualification for the purpose of registration, this is the amount that they'll pay. And then The penalty comes again if it is more than 1 year after graduation. You can see where it went now. It's more than double what it was before. But very important, it comes to registration. If a candidate or an applicant was never in any category of candidacy when they apply for professional registration, instead of paying 5,106, they will pay 10,213 because ECSA does not know anything about you. They've never met you. They don't have your information. So those that have been candidates, they pay 5,000, almost half of what this is all about. So this is very, very important in encouraging those that might be coming, that after graduation, when they get the letter, before even they go to graduation, they need to apply as candidates with ECSA. And it becomes of paramount importance in terms of the identification of engineering work as well that is going to come to make registration compulsory as we go along. We are still waiting, and we'll see what will pan up on the 1st of April 2025 next year. But this is where it hits now in terms, because it hits on the pocket in terms of the payment that needs to be made at ECSA. Again, part of this is also on Form B3 is the referee information. This is very, very important in terms of that. So it differs as per the categories of registration, but just take a looking at this one. This is the information that is on the application form. It says provided the names of and contact details of at least 3 referees. Now, the reason for that is that, and this is where the stem comes from, that if 2 referees, if 1 referee out of the 3 does not support the application, the 2 referees support the application, then it can go through. There's nothing wrong to submit 2, but the reason with the 3 was to assist the applicants in terms of that. And all of these referees must be registered with ECSA in those categories that are indicated there. 1 referee report must be from the current or past supervisor, the person who's got that intimate knowledge of the applicant with that regard, because it assists a lot. Remember, the referee is also part of the registration process, although the assessors make their own mind, but they assist as well, because the referee or the supervisor is somebody who's spending quality most of the time with the applicant. Now, it goes further to say, if the supervisor is not registered with ECSA, a total of 4 referee reports are needed as well. It gets more. Now, maybe let me just touch base on the referee. A referee does not necessarily have to be somebody that works with the applicant. It's somebody who has got intimate knowledge of the applicant, who knows what the applicant is doing. Like, for example, I'm a mentor to many of the people that I do not work with, not even in our consultancy company. But because we meet quarterly, we meet every 3rd week in a month. So I know what they're doing because I've got access to them. Every 2nd week, they submit their information to me, and I go through that with them. We've got the meeting that we always have online so that we can understand what is happening as part of the mentorship. So it's very, very critical to make sure that the applicant makes contact with that referee. Now and then we contact the referees just for a check to make sure that what we are seeing in front of us is what is happening. And our industry is very small. It became a village. It's easy to pick up if there's untruth on what has been submitted, and almost we know each other in the industry. Again, this has to be initiated in front of the Commissioner of Oaths as part of the requirements as well. There's also part that talks about the declaration that is very, very important as well. It needs to be completed as such. Many times, what we have seen as well on that is that the applicants do not understand what the requirements are. They answer it in an opposite way compared to the way it's supposed to be answered. But it needs to be completed as well because it forms part of the quality process. ECSA get audited on terms of these application forms, and questions comes that they find the finding to say, how was this application processed, or did it go through whereby it does not meet the minimum requirements in terms of compliance? Again, on that page, the 3rd page, there's also the Commissioner of Oaths requirement as well. And many of the applicants forget this. They only do the 1st page. They forget about these other pages that are there. This needs to be completed as well. On Form B1.3 AR stands for the academic record. It says provide the detailed information on tertiary engineering qualifications, and these get cross-checked by ECSA as well with where the applicants has studied or where this academic record refer to. All the subjects or courses that were passed, the year obtained, marks obtained, if most of the time they are available, and also to include those extra subjects or courses that are passed for incomplete qualification. The reason for this as well is that they add value to the initial professional development as well, in terms of those that might be lacking in terms of that or do not have that. So it's more about the portfolio of evidence of the applicant when they put in this application form. And again, the certified copies of all those certificates must be included in the application form. And then there's a difference that comes now. Some people lump this together. The request is that if you've got more than one qualification that comes there, please complete this form B.13A for each of the qualifications separately. It makes it easier for administration. It also makes it easier for the assessors as well. Form B.2.1 is about the training and experience reports. And over the years of experience, and like Tom indicated earlier, I've started doing this extra work in terms of registration in June of 2005. So up to today, we still find a challenge in people do not understanding how to complete this. The TER is the training and experience report of the person in terms of what they've done. There are guidelines that are given there in the template of what needs to be done. This needs to be completed as such, and there's a sheet B2 that gives the credible information about what needs to be completed. When does the period change? When does the work change in terms of what has happened? And it needs to be signed both by the applicant and the supervisor or the person that is in charge for the work that was done at that stage. Critical as well, the organogram that needs to show all the positions that were held by the person who's applying, and so that it can be verified as well in terms of that. This assists in terms of the progression to see in terms of degree of responsibility moving from level A to level E. How did the applicant progress in terms of that? And again, moving further, this training experience report plays a critical role because it matches or maps up for cross-reference with the engineering report. And we'll talk about it just now when we get to the engineering report. So the assessors will read the TER, and you'll see there's another extra column that refers for cross-referencing. When they read that and it does not correlate with the engineering report because both work together, they stop reading further and they send the application back. And you can imagine that time that has been wasted for rewriting of a training and experience report. And often they come that this applicant is not ready for registration if he or she is unable to read what is written down that is so straightforward, that is understood. So at times applicants they are too hasty without reading what is required in terms of what is requested in the training and experience reports. That's why it starts very, very critical in terms of the work that the applicant has done and up to where it is going now. When you go to the engineering report, it's about the level of competence now. And I often explain this to say, experience is that amount of time that you give to the company. So you can have 10 years experience, but 1 year of competence outside that. So it will matter most when it goes to the training, when it goes to the outcomes in the engineering report. Simply put is that the level of competence will be indicated in there because the criterion is different when you get to the engineering report, but the stamp is from the training and experience reports that needs to be completed correctly. And I'm happy that I saw earlier when Phil was presenting as well, it was referring to the training experience outline. This one is for, I normally use the word for the mature candidates, though does not have to go through the process as it is. You'll see even in the R-03 PRO, the process document, it is they do a comparison in table 4, 5, and 6 for the categories to say, when you read, when you've got this experience of at least 10 years, that is not like the junior or the people that just finished their training, let's say for minimum of 5 years or minimum 3 years and so on, that come just into the 4. Use the training and experience outline, but it's because it's compacted experience the way it needs to be presented. This information that is there will totally be different from the one that is from the TER, in how out of that, and it's an art of writing that experience to highlight the difference out of the 10 year or more than 20 years or 10 years that the applicant has, to put it in here. A simple reference will be to check table 4, 5, and 6 of the R-03 PRO document, which is the process document for applications. That is what the administration uses and the assessors when they look at the process that should have been followed in terms of compiling this. Now it comes back again to say, the difference will come here to say, at least for the past 3 years, instead of a 1 year that is requested from the TER, that this person who's completing the training experience outline must have been operating at the responsibility level E in terms of the degree of responsibility. Reason being, that the compacted experience, if they have to complete it here, will be 150 pages or 200 pages, but it's to take out that information or the experience that is more relevant to the competence of the applicant, so that it can be seen as such. I hope that maybe in the next session we'll be able to talk about it, or maybe I take that we have touched base on this, because it's also an art in terms of presenting the TER and the TEO. Again, another correlation, it is the training and summary and training experience and summary, the TES, which is in Form B2.2. The information that is here, you'll see here when you check here on the period numbers. These period numbers must match with what is indicated in the TR. Period 1 there will be indicated here as a summary as such as well. And again, same as for the TEO as well. So this is very, very important in making sure that there's a correlation. It is so sad most of the time when we see the application form being returned because of non-compliance, or the information that is in the TER or TEO is not meeting what is in the TES or in the summary. A simple thing that could have been checked before. And as we always say, that it means the applicants are very hastily to submit. And also part of this goes to outcome 5 in the engineering report, which is communication. That in terms of report writing, there's a missing link that needs to be validated, or that needs to be closed as well. And all the parts that are here needs to be completed. Most of the time, that one that is not completed is the total number of years here, or the number of weeks in whatever format that can be given, and the signature that goes hand in hand here as well. So please, those that will be prospective applicants, to take your time to go through this and complete it as such, so that it matches and correlates. In terms of Form B2.3, which is the engineering report, that's the one that we're talking about. There's a column that whereby this needs to cross-reference. For example, in terms of outcome 1, which will refer to the define, investigate, and analyze. In the training and experience report, or in the TEO, this needs to be indicated. For example, where was that done, so that there can be that cross-pollination or that cross-reference that will be done by the assessors. Because at the engineering report is where now there's a criterion that needs to be satisfied in terms of the level of competence. And again, very important in terms of this one, about 100 words per criterion, very, very strict when it comes to that. It needs to comply to the requirements in terms of that. So many times you find is double the amount. So again, the question comes in terms of compliance, to say this applicant is unable to can read what is in the application form. And it's so sad, as I keep on repeating, that applications get sent back by the assessors because the applicants are unable to comply with what is requested. Now, the advice that I normally give is that when you complete the application form, when the applicant complete the TER and the TEO, please complete them at the same time with an engineering report. If it is period 1 and you see in terms of this, maybe it's outcome 7 that has been captured, do it as such, because the moment you do it later, that's where the information gets mixed. The 2 or 3 talks to each other in terms of that. And again, there's a good guidance to say the report may cover conceptualization, design and analysis, specification, tendering and adjudication, manufacturing, project and construction management, commissioning, maintenance, measurement and testing, or planning. At that range statement, that will be the other complex level for the engineers, but broadly defined level for the engineering technologists, or at well-defined level for the engineering technicians. So sometimes when the assessors read, and as part of the training panel at ECSA as well, that we train them, they've got a certain way of reading this, and expectation of this must be captured as such. So if it's not highlighted, then I will always look back and say the applicant is doing injustice to him or herself by not providing the information the way it's supposed to be done. Remember, they've been trained, they have read the application, and they're expecting that some of these concepts that are here must be highlighted or must be covered. And very important way this is coming into is that because we submit our, when I say our, I mean South Africa via ECSA at the International Engineer Alliance, where Tom was talking about, is our registration statement. So when we get audited or when we get reviewed by the 3 competency agreements, they'll first look at this, that what we are requesting in our registration statement is what we measure the applicants about. So we've already made that commitment, or we've already signed up for that. So it needs to be retrospective to show that when they take a sample of the registration application forms that went through at ECSA, these are highlighted in terms of that. So it's a very, very important part of what needs to be completed by the applicant. And it matters most here because it is now where competence is measured. And again, as you can see here, it comes again to say that please cross-refer the item reported upon to the relevant evidence in the training experience report or the experience outline. As I said, the easy way will be when the TER is completed or the TEO, complete already the section of the engineering report at the same time and cross-reference that, because the two have to talk to each other. When the assessors read this, first thing when they read that it's not correlating, they read further and they find only out of 11 outcomes, maybe 5 outcomes are meeting. Or let me say worst case scenario, 10 of them, it is not compliant because it has to be, it's not about the 50% or 90% pass. All the outcomes needs to be satisfied and there need to be that cross-pollination. Same to the provision of the sample of relevant calculations and drawings as an addendum is a requirement that is there. Sometimes applicants say, but the drawings that I've done are on an A0. That portion that you work on that will be relevant to your application needs to be, you can take a picture of an A4 or in another other manner that it can be done so that it can be making part of the application. It's more about the compliance of the requirements that are in the engineering report and all other forms that are there. And ECSA also guides simply to say, use Appendix A of the discipline-specific training guide. You know, the R05 documents, they differ. You'll have the PE for the professional, for the engineers, PT for the technologists, and then the PN for the technicians. But they also go further to differ. For example, I'm from the civil engineering background. From civil engineering, it goes deeper. For example, it will go to geotechnical engineering. It will go deeper into that. It will go to transportation engineering, differentiate transportation planning, traffic engineering, materials engineering, and so on and so on. At times, the applicant might pass the experience appraisal stage. When it gets to the professional review stage, which is compulsory, that's the interview. When the reviewers interrogate and try to correlate what has been given, they find gaps that are missing. Reason being, and it comes most of the time quite clear that the applicant never read the discipline-specific training guide because information is given there and it guides in terms of the work that you do must be in which realm so that it can not convince, but it can show the assessors or the person who's reading your application form that you're operating in this regard. For example, the word that is loosely used, design, I designed, many times it means nothing. It needs to be complemented with the methodology of what kind of a design, at which level was the design done. But if the part where the collection of information and analysis and investigation is not indicated clearly, then it misses the point automatically in that one. As I've said, this is an art in terms of writing this in terms of a chronological order or a logical manner that follows each other. Maybe at a stage, we need to maybe go further in terms of seeing this. And I'm happy that on Monday, we are going to have a mock interview for one of the candidates that is going to get registered. So, I mean, that is going to is going for the professional review interview, which is the compulsory one as well, so that we can drill, because there's also an art in a way in which the reviewers ask questions that are a follow-on coming from what has been said by the applicant. Many times applicants do not realize that when they present information that is not related to the category of where they're operating, then they sell themselves short or they sell them out of the scope of what they are doing. It's about the contextual knowledge of engineering that is very, very important in terms of explaining the process to somebody who might not be in the field of engineering, so that they can understand that the application or knowledge of the competency from this person who's sitting in front for the professional will not be a danger to the society. What you need to remember, the core is about protection of health and safety, and to those people that do not know about what we do in engineering. So it has to be done at that lay person's level so that it is clearly understood, but talking or using the engineering language. Moving further in terms of this, as you can, okay, this one I think I've covered, I can just leave. If you go to form B3, okay.
Okay.
Somebody's not muted. disturbance. Okay, so for Form B3, in terms of the request for the referee, so this part of the application or the forms that are there are not going to form part of the application. The applicant needs to send these, extract them from the application, send them to the referees that are going to be a referee, because they had to be sent under a separate cover, as they are very confidential and private. You should not know about what is in the referee report. And then many times applicants forget to inform the referees. The application arrive at ECSA and they say, but the referee reports are not here. So when the applicant is sending the application to ECSA, they need to inform the referees to also at that time to submit their referee, so that they can all arrive at almost more or less the same time at ECSA, so that it does not delay the processing of the application form. In terms of this as well, I hope we've got all the referees here as well. So sometimes it assists a lot in terms of when the referee report is completed. Don't just give a one-liner. Write more in terms of assisting the assessor, so that they can see this person that they've never met in their life, that this is how the person operates, because they rely on the referees as well for that part, whereby it's more or less a blind side, that in terms of the knowledge or the experience of this person or the competence of this person is in this manner. So writing just competency demonstrated CDC at times does not assist a lot. So that's why there's a space there for the remarks. Let's those that are referees put some information in there so that it makes it easy. There's another form, which is Form B5 IPD, which is the initial professional development. It's called initial professional development because it is something that is done before the registration, but it's the same all courses that are done for continuous professional development. Again, in here, please, the applicants that are going to apply, make sure that you cover all those sections that are there. You'll see there's engineering courses, management courses, and computer courses. And it's not only those courses that are Category 1 related. Anything that forms part of the portfolio of evidence where the applicant has gained knowledge outside the normal norm of the classroom setting is part of the initial professional development or professional development. As you can see here, I removed the word I. Here, I just refer to it as professional development in terms of that, so that you indicate that things that you have learned that aided you in the work that you are doing, because the whole idea behind that is the professional development, that you develop yourself along the process as well. Remember, this is also a requirement in terms of that, so that it needs to be indicated. Now, there's also a form that which is a B18EDER. Maybe let me just talk about it for a minute. That it's not in all. It's only in the shown in the technician application and the technologist application as part of the alternative route. The reason being for this was to say, let's safeguard the time in terms of applying for educational background evaluation. That is another process that the applicant has to pay for. So it is in a case whereby the person does not have a benchmark qualification for the category they're applying for. Then they complete the form, which is the educational development report. This form is to indicate that without the formal educational background of sitting in the classroom, in the years of experience, matching the work that you do, for example, in terms of mathematics and the science behind of the work that you have done or the applicant has done in engineering, how did they come about that? And you'll see in terms of that, when that is completed at the first part until outcome 5, it is the part of where it's an application of the work that has been done. And again, it's an art of how one writes that. But many times with experience, what we have seen is that the criterion that is given there, the applicants do not read that. It indicates, for example, we're saying, in terms of mathematics, that that the applicant has used or applied, how did that aid in terms of carrying out the work? So the expectation is not that one will have went to do the derivatives, or they will have gone and do integration. It's more in terms of the application of something that one did not do in terms of the formal education, that how did that came about to assist in carrying out the work. They will also ask and say, state, for example, the mix of mathematical or natural science or engineering knowledge that has been applied. So it's more about the application that one has used. And where will that come? And that is why this comes after the IPD. Part of that to link it is that in the initial professional development, This is what one has taught him or herself, or in the workspace through the mentorship or through any other process that has gone through, so that they can show that this has been done. And for example, they will also ask for in terms of describe how was that analyzed or modeled using materials or components or systems in terms of that. So it's not to say one must say, I'm able to solve for X. It's not about, it's more now about the application. And many applicants miss that part, that they think this is a very difficult one. This was done for a purpose that the people that do not have a formal education, they do have the experience that counts, but it's up to them on how they put it on paper and how do they convince, or how do they make sure that the reader on the other side will be able to understand. So it is all about the application of the experience and the knowledge that the person has, and how do they apply that throughout their career in showing that. So all of them, they talk about the description of what has been done, the application of what one has done in their work. I mean, how do they do it so that they can match those that set in a formal qualification setup of a classroom. All the experience that the applicants have count a lot, and is a portfolio of evidence of what one person has as well. Now, I was talking about this in terms of the engineers, in terms of that the alternative route, there is yes. In terms of the HEQS of higher education qualification sub-framework allowed now that those that come through the process of not having the BSc or the B in engineering, they can come through a process of the education, the engineering technology setup, that after the advanced diploma or the Bachelor of Engineering Technology, then they can advance to the postgraduate diploma, which is a cognate of a professional master's that are accredited by ECSA, and then they'll satisfy the requirements for candidate engineer, which this part was never there before in some years. Now it has been enabled, and it's up to the applicants or those institutions that are offering it for the applicants to make sure that they use the case that is there. All over the world, even in those signatories that are to the IEA, there is always somewhere, somehow, an alternative route of how one reaches the end. Because remember, the qualification is an enabler at the beginning, but it's the competency that the person has built over the years that is measured when it gets to professional registration. So although it assists education at that part, but it plays a role to a certain point. The person brings him or herself to the work and the application thereof to build themselves up and prove that from this, what I have done and the information that I have for the education, I'm able to do the work in this manner, also always guarding against the code of conduct or within the limits and the boundaries of engineering experience as well as one moves along. Again, ECSA also requests this, that it be completed is more at a very, very far end of the application, which is the disability register. And they've written down there that this is requested in terms of the statistics for the Employment Equity Act, of 1998, Act number 55 thereof. So normally it gets missed. It needs to be completed because when the auditors come, they also submit this information. I've also added information as well in terms of the additional requirements that might be an oversight in terms of this. If at times the person has worked somewhere and they're unable to can obtain the supervisor signature of the people that they work with, it is allowed to do a sworn affidavit with reasons of cause and confirmation that is correct, that this is signed in front of a commissioner of oaths. And it happens a lot because people move along and then they go somewhere. And proof will be requested to prove that the person is unable to reach those people. And sometimes we know people live on bad note from other workplaces. They go to the other workplaces, they're unable to get those. That can be indicated, or some people are asked to leave. But people that look at this application have been trained as well to look at the merits of each application in terms of that. And as I've said, our industries, it became a village. It's very small. We know each other very well. We know the work that is being done from the government department or the authority clients or whoever that might out be there. So one way or the other will be able to can pick up that this work that was done, really, yes, it was done, and it was under these people. Circumstances that maybe led to not getting the confirmation might be a different game as well, but we are very well aware in terms of that. Moving further as well, when one looks at the ECSA documents that define this whole process, the R-03 document, which is the processing of applications for registration of both candidates and professionals, define this process to follow to be used by ECSA to process and make decisions regarding application for registration in terms of other candidacy over professional registration. And all of these things, when these documents were written, they are stemming from the Engineering Profession Act of 2000, Act number 46 thereof, in terms of aligning them. I was part of the working group whereby we just recently finished, when I say recently, I mean in February, the revision of the R-01 POLPC. These abbreviations in the document, for example, R-01 POL stand for policy, PC stand for professional categories, because you'll also find this R-01 POL SC for the specified categories. Due to the changes that came from the International Engineering Alliance on our professional competencies and our graduate attributes in terms of accreditation as well, that we still need to implement. So this is the overarching policy. Now I'm going to show a diagram whereby I'm going to give guidance in terms of how should this process be navigated to make it easier, that all the dots are connected to make life easy. The other document that is very important is the competency standard R-02 STAPEPTPN. STA here stands for standard. See, this one is a policy, this one is a standard. Now, the assessors use R-02, and it is supplemented by R-08, which explains the competency standard. So that one is not the policy, just the guideline that explains what the R-02 is all about, because it provides that high-level definition of the registration process that results from implementation of this policy defined in R-01 POLPC. So these are the documents that I'm referring to in terms of this. That first is the R-01 POLPC. As you can see, this is the overarching policy for registration. And then comes the definition, there is the competency standard that defines the competency that we're talking about in terms of application. R-03 that we're talking about here now is a process document that it assists in terms of the assessment process and forms of evidence that must be submitted. That's the guide. That's why I say PRO stand for process in the document here. PC, as I've said, is for professional competencies. Again, one document that also assists a great deal is R-04, Training and Mentoring Guide. TNM stand for Training and Mentoring Guide. It's a guide document in terms of even if you did not go through the formal training of registration, when that document is read, it in a way assists to say this will have been an expectation if you went under a formal training before registration. Reading it in conjunction with the R-05 that you spoke about earlier, the discipline specific, it makes it easier for the applicant to can navigate and map the experience or the competence that they have that they need to show. Remember earlier I spoke about R-08, which is a competence guide to R-02. So these two, as you can see here, it explains what is inside R-02 STA, which is the standard document as well. There's also this document in terms of the RINT guide, which is what talks about the interview guide, how the interview will be conducted. It also assists, and I think we'll also have a look at it next week, Monday, when we've got that mock interview with one of the candidates, so that it prepares to say this is expectation that we'll expect from the reviewers when you go for the professional review that is compulsory. So ECSA had made it easier for the readers or the applicants and the mentors and those that are coaches, that all the documents you see them in one, and how do they align to each other, so that the reading makes it easier, so that this is how the navigation will be done. It takes time, of course, to read them, but everything is possible, it can be done. So the other part is the new system that ECSA has now in terms of the calendar, the cycle calendar for applications. What I spoke to Phil about when we were preparing for this training session or the webinar was about this period that is coming now, 15 June to 15 August, this 3 months period that is coming. So those that will be ready will have the time so that they can slot in. If that is missed, you can see the cycle will only come when. But what I like, they explain everything in terms of the first cycle and the second cycle submission, so that, and it works so well, making sure that there's a seamless process in terms of the time that it takes for the applications to be processed by ECSA. So people will know, or the applicants who has applied, where are they in one point in time, so that where the application is tracking in terms of that. We're nearing now in the conclusion in terms of that is to ensure that the application does not exceed 50 pages in total as requested, including those attachments that we spoke about. Very, very important in terms of the compliance that is requested as well. And to make sure that this completed application is submitted via the prescribed method that ECSA has indicated, because they now are allowed that it can be submitted online, and to ensure that all the documents are secured and clearly identifiable. So a cross-check will assist to see if these documents that I'm putting there, they are coming from a copy or a photocopy of a photocopy. When they make a photocopy on the other side, will they be able to clearly be able to be identifiable, so that we can check that information as well. And please check the contact information always at ECSA in terms of or what is the latest, or how should one submit the information, because it's a dynamic society, it's a dynamic situation. It keeps on changing now and then. Thank you very much, colleagues, for taking the time to listen to me. I'll be able to now take the questions. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Jones. Kim and Phil, you've been monitoring the chat in terms of questions. Are there questions that you've not been able to address that we should direct to Jones in the chat?
Tom, yes, I think I'm going to hand over to Kim. There's a couple of, I think Kim and I probably handled most of it, but there are areas where we have some questions. So Kim, let me hand that over to you. I think the question on page count, Jones has just covered for Calvin, but there are some other questions in terms of the qualifications, the diplomas and things coming through, and one or two others. So Kim, I'm going to hand over to you.
So Kim, before you go, Jones, the one thing you didn't, I don't think, cover was in this particular cohort of candidates, we've got people whose experience ranges from 5 or 6 or 7 years to people with 40+ years. The TEO/TER synopsis. You did speak about TERs in terms of word count, etc., but maybe you can just give a comment on, we've recommended to the candidates to look at the last 3 to 5 years of their work experience and cover that in the TERs, and to take anything prior to that and to cover it in the TEOs.
Yeah, so the question being, Tom?
The question being, for those that are going to go, let's call it the alternative non-formal educational route, and even those with qualifications but with vast experience, there is 2 components to their application. The ones with a benchmark qualification but 20 years experience or more are not going to fill in 64 TERs. They're going to fill in 1 or 2 or maybe 3 TERs, and then summarize the balance of their work experience in a TEO, which is a more bullet form, as opposed to, explaining what you did in a lot more detail.
Yes. Yeah, if you look on the screen here, I hope you can see the PDF. It's a ROR-03. When this document was prepared at that time, we said, okay, let us have maybe this comparative analysis in one document for those that are for the TER and the TEO. Now you can see the difference in terms of I just took the one for the professional engineer here. If you check in terms of training experience, what is expected from the training experience, the outline, and the TER in terms of those that have just recently maybe not graduated, but their experience is not more than 10 years in that regard. Now, it's also not a hard cast rule, because what we have seen, and even those that are mentoring, those that have got so much experience, they say it's much easier to complete the TER than the TEO in terms of that, because the TEO, you've got so much experience, the fear comes to say, which part do I leave out and which part do I put in? But you can see here, in terms of what we have on the screen, if going further, the guidance to the it clearly indicates the difference in terms of that. So the detail is, the request will be to go and read RO3. This is in table, for the engineers, is in table 3. The engineering technologies, table 4. The technicians is table 5. It gives the, and it's easier when one reads here before going there to say which one will I take, which one will make life easier. Does it assist in that way, Tom?
Yeah, I know that's perfect. Thank you, Joan. Sorry to cut you short, Kim, but please go ahead.
No,
So,
that's great.
Kim,
I actually want to ask one.
Could you cover that question on the 6.5 years? Because that's an interesting one. Does it have to be more than 10, or do you do 5? So sorry, Kim, I was interrupted. Apologies.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So let's work with Philip that question first. Minimum number for being able to do TEOs instead of TERs.
Yeah, as I've said, it's not a hard cast rule. The idea with the TEOs was to make it easier for those that have got experience in terms of this. So what we've also seen is it becomes difficult to, as I've said, so much experience. Sometimes, for example, you find the experience that could have led to registration was done 10 years back compared to what is happening now. Now, when and it's human nature that when you fill in the application form starting chronologically with what you have, the person feels where I am now is where I must be seen, and I'm at a senior level. At that time, that was there. It's also an art, and I think maybe it will be easier. I'm not sure how the process works here to see that person who has completed that. Then it becomes easier when I can give a guidance in terms of this is how the assessors will read the application without seeing it. Now we talk about it, but if we don't maybe have an example of somebody who's in that, we might be missing the point. I wish maybe the next session we can have a completed, we can hide the name of the person and use it as an example to say, this is where it's missing, this is where it is in terms of the TO, compared to if this information was completed in a TER, it will have been out in this manner. I hope that assists.
Yes, I think so. Would you expect to see, if somebody had less than 10 years experience, would you expect to see any TEOs in that submission?
No, there is normally the TER. Even those that have got 10 years, depending on what the person is doing. Some of them they've matured, but they're still even at a higher level in hardcore engineering. So they just prefer to fill in the TER.
Sure.
And explain in the TR, say period one, I covered my past 7 years. I was doing this, but the focus will be now from period 2 until period whereby they break it down to say, this is recently where I am. As I've said, it's also a choice of a person in terms of the portfolio of evidence that one has that is going to enable you or assist you better. You don't just have to give everything and anything just to fill in the pages or submit. It's something that is standing out that matches the outcomes in terms of the requirements of the criterion in the outcome.
So there was a question actually that came through earlier today, which also links in with this, basically saying, relating to the 13, the TEOs, within the documentation, it says they should be roughly 13 bullet points long. Now, it is extremely difficult to get all of the points covered in 13 bullet points within one TEO.
Yeah,
how strict is that? If they're fairly easy to read and understandable and it's laid out neatly, are people going to get penalized if they have more than 13 bullet points?
No, they'll not be penalized. Remember, that is a guidance that is in the application form.
Sure.
It's rather to have more information than to have nothing. Yes, it's a guidance that is there. The assessors, we train them in such a way that they apply their mind to what they see. For example, we normally see these people showing the information that should be in outcome 1 is given in outcome 2. So when you read first, maybe outcome 1, don't find, you cannot send it back the application. You read further and say, this information should have been there. It links in this manner. Even in that regard, it does that. So, and I know what you're talking about, Kim, because many people, what they do, they're afraid of that they will fail or it will be sent back. There's nothing wrong. If you apply, ECSA will never chase away people not to register them. They will give a guidance to say, or they will say, this information is not there, that one is there, or this one is. They will never chase the person away. But people are afraid of that thing of saying, in my first attempt, I was turned down. They will never turn any person down. Never. The last option will be to say to the applicant to go for an abeyance period to gain the more experience of what is requested. But that comes as the last resort after all the avenues at the experience appraisal stage, that is at stage 1, have been exhausted of the interview at experience appraisal stage, resubmission of the information, and all of those. It's very minimal that a person will at the experience appraisal stage say you are not registrable, unless maybe if the person comes from the music industry, gets into engineering by mistake.
Fair enough. Okay, moving on to the other questions then. I think one of the first ones here is if a candidate registration was cancelled in 2022, but now looking at registering, is the application fee on the high-end one? So does it belong to the 10K because it's not continuously registered as a candidate?
No, that's why I was saying that they use that for the billing. What they will do, they will look at the money that is owed for that period to ECSA that get cleared first, and then reinstatement will come into place.
So if you pay the 2 years that you didn't have, if you basically settle that, then they will treat you as continuously registered and let you have the lower level thereafter. Okay,
yes,
that makes sense.
That's why it's very, very important, Tim, for that part of previous registration to be completed and to explain in terms of what happened. What they will do first, if somebody indicates that and they check on the system to say, but you were cancelled for this period, before proceeding with the application, they'll have to make sure that that one is closed. Else, then you'll have to pay the 10,000. So it's more, if it rather take little time of 3 months to get that sorted out, or 2 months, or whatever the time might be, to rather pay less so that you don't, to sort that amount that was owed. Yes, then you pay the 5,000 instead of the 10,000.
Okay. Then there's a question here that I think we've answered, but I just want to double check. If the people are currently undergoing a master's, but it's not yet complete, do they still add those module scores and things like that? Their marks for the modules they have completed?
Yes. It is a portfolio of evidence, team, up to where the person is. That's why they allow that to say extra modules or incomplete courses that one has taken. It's very, very important. And also, those that are management, like your MBAs, project management, they count, because in there are things that, so you also supplement your IPD already when you indicate those. So when they look at your application where they might have been short, remember other outcomes, for example, outcome 4, outcome 5, outcome 6, and outcome 7 are non-engineering related. It's something else. So they also count towards the portfolio of evidence as well.
Yeah. Then in line with that as well, if somebody is currently applying for a BTech, so they're filling in that documentation, do they include the marks that they received for their diploma subjects, or do they just use their BTech subjects?
They just use the BTech subjects, but in terms of the application, they'll have to show the copies of the diploma. In there, you only fill that one,
Okay, so they need to include a certified copy of their diploma certificate, and their BTech certificate, but they only include their BTech subject marks. Okay.
Yes, and I'll tell why. Because in the application form where we were there saying, if a person, for example, we have got people who've got the same level of qualifications that aid for the same level of category, and that's it, as a benchmark. Hence, then they have to submit both, and I'll tell why. You find that the person is maybe operating in transportation engineering, but they've done something that is more aligned to geotechnical engineering. So when that assessors look at that, they can variant look at that. But if it is the one that the application form is clear to say only the one that is being applied for must be indicated. Of course, they would like to see the qualification before this one, especially where you've got a qualification before the other one.
Sure. So I assume if we then were to have a situation like a PhD, they would show their PhD qualification, which normally doesn't have subjects, but then for both the masters and if it was a PhD engineering one, either a BSc.
Kim, they must show the detailed results for the qualification that is the benchmark for that registration category. If they, in addition, have gone and done a master's with or without coursework and a PhD, they would simply add those as certified qualifications to show they've studied beyond their benchmark qualification. So PREng will include, let's take Emma in the session. Emma would include her full academic curriculum from Tuckies and the results, like Takalani would have done. Voter, he will only include his BTech subjects that he did at Tshwane or Pretoria Technikon, and somebody in the room who's got a diploma would include their diploma. They may have done something subsequently, but they're not using it as their benchmark qualification.
Yes.
100% understood. Charlotte, is your question directly related to this as well, or is it a totally different topic?
Yeah, so my one question is related to that. I just wanted to ask, maybe if I've missed, like, does your other qualifications, like a master's degree, hold any kind of, I don't know, value in towards the registration, or not? It's just the base qualification that matters and the master's doesn't matter? That's my first question. And then I just had another question to say, when you're writing your report, is there like a, because I've seen that there's like mostly two formats that people would use, and the one is where they write their engineering report in terms of stages, and then the other ones they write per outcome. Is there a certain of the two that ECSA prefers over the other things?
I think the first part is answered in terms of, maybe let me ask you, Charlotte, which masters are you referring to?
Let's just say it's a master's of engineering in civil engineering. I'm a civil engineer, then I do a master's in civil engineering. That's it, and it's a coursework master's or research. Does it count towards experience or anything that will help me with my registration? If maybe I had 3 years experience, does that really help get me over the line or not really?
Yeah, I think maybe let's maybe break down your question. I'll use a hypothetical example. You've got a benchmark qualification, for example. I'm not sure in which category are you. Are you in technology? Are you in?
No, she's PRN.
Yeah. Okay. Then you've got the BSc or the BEng. That is a benchmark qualification for PRN. That is fine. So the work that you have done in your master's, if it meets any of the requirements for registration, I mean, in terms of the outcomes, yes, that can be used in that regard. The work that is inside so it's not the master's as per se, it is what is done inside the master's that meets any of the outcomes there.
And then, sorry, Mr. Jones. So then how do you then get that? Who's going to sign off for that work that I've done in my master's? Because that can be my supervisor at work. So in terms of my TERs, then who signs for that?
Yeah, remember, it's not, how can I explain? It's not the research. And I go back to what I said, is the application of that what you got in the master's that you have done. Is it clear? In your workplace, that comes, it makes you, it elevated you to be operating at a certain level in a different manner. So your supervisor at work can be the one to sign. It's not that you are submitting that you are what's the correct way to use? You are assessed on a master's, the work that you have done. So what I mean, that work that you have done is part of that. By virtue of doing that in your workplace, it aids you.
So Jones, let me help a little bit. So Charlotte, any further education that you have obtained, and that's why Jones said, even if you've done a master's in business administration, as an example, the assessors acknowledge that you have demonstrated the ability to go and study beyond the minimum requirements. If you were a full-time student for your master's degree and you took a time out from work, then you would account for it on your timelines to show that for the period X to Y, you were a full-time master's student and that qualification is attached. X is not going to reassess your master's and the content of your master's. If you were applying on E17P and you wanted the master's and the project you did in the master's to be assessed as part of the meeting the educational requirements, then that's a very different story. But no education, formal or otherwise, is ignored by ECSA in assessing you for professional registration.
Thanks, Tom.
Sorry, Tom, can I just ask a follow-on with that? If you have gone straight and done a full-time master's, my understanding was that you could do a TER on that time, but as long as you're not just regurgitating what you did for your thesis or something like that, you are explaining how you did the problem solving, how you addressed it, all of that side. Is that then not true?
Yeah, Tim, remember we said, and I think the moment we talk about a TER, I'll expect somebody to say reference that to which outcome now in the engineering report. You see, already there we are missing it. So And that's where it comes. If you've got information in the TER, but it's not referenced to the engineering report, then it's meaningless. That's why they did it that way, for that cross-reference, to say that what you did here in terms of competency, how did it develop you? Do you get it? Because the outcomes there.
100%. But I mean,
Yes.
say for instance, you've written up your TER on your masters in a manner that is identifying and linking it with the various outcomes as necessary. So
Yes.
and you're addressing the defining and the analysis and all of those, or management aspects of it, and you correlate
Yes.
them accordingly. Surely that should then officially count as experience gained.
Of course, but now you see, you're no longer, now it's no longer about the masters. It's what you did inside the master that is aiding you.
100%.
Yes. And I think that's what normally people miss the point, to say, it's not about the registration is like Tom was saying, it's not assessing your qualification. It's what is inside that aid you. Now remember, here is about the competency. Let's match yourself with somebody who does not have qualifications but have got experience, many years of experience. So that's why ECSA does not discriminate against those people. They say they will take long, but they will meet. They'll also reach the end in terms of their competency by virtue of training, mentoring, coaching, and so on in the work experience, that they will arrive there. Competency, they meet it. And it's also in the International Engineering Alliance in terms of when we measure competency, it's not about the education part. The education is an enabler to shorten the period, but those will take longer who don't have that. In terms of competency, then they will meet there as well at the finish line, the same as others. So it's more inside what did you do? We normally say, what did you do inside that masters that elevated you to meet that outcome in terms of that? So it's the work that I've done in my masters that does. So it's no longer about the qualification itself. It's what is inside that qualification.
Yes.
That meets the requirements. Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Tim, if I could ask Jones, just as an example there, because it's sort of relevant in other people that I've helped. In my instance, for instance, I did a BSc and then I did a master's in theoretical structural analysis. So I would write up the master's only looking at outcomes 1, 2, 3, and how the master's was relevant in the analysis, the design, etc. If I had done an MBA and I was doing financial management and business management, then I'd be addressing outcomes 5 to 9, and I would just write it up differently, and I would then get the benefit of the master's time because I was addressing a different outcome. So I think that's
Yes.
the approach.
Yes.
Kim, you saw that Lorato's got a hand up there, just in case you didn't see it.
No, I did see Lorato's hand. I just wanted to finish with the ones in the text, first, and then come back to Lorato, if that's okay. Just because there were a couple there that have been hanging around for a while. Okay.
Kim, there's your own question about the calcs and the drawings.
Yes. So that was just the calcs and the drawings in the appendices. Are they really looked at? Will somebody be penalised if there aren't calcs and drawings in the appendices?
It will not be, but remember, in engineering, you need to indicate to the assessors that in terms of the science behind what one has done, how did one arrive there? So it's not necessarily the calculation. It's a guideline that is given there to say comply, but instead of some people, for example, instead of the calculations, they develop a program that is being used, for example, design or for maintenance or something. So that the science behind what one has done replaces that as well, because not everybody will design. For example, those that do that develop the what do you call it, the solutions in outcome 2. What do they do? They read, for example, the client body, they read your design as a consultant where you did the calculation. But from there, they can say they were reading your application in terms of what you have submitted, and then as a job to them, and they made this conclusion. So they applied their engineering knowledge in terms of that, but they never did any calculation on that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yes.
Then there's a question here which I think we've actually answered. It basically was, do all the 11 outcomes need to be covered in TOs and TERs? I think that means in each TO and TER, but to my understanding, we've covered it in that you don't necessarily need them all covered in all of them, well, except by the time your degree of responsibility E, in which case you must show that you're covering it. But if you have, for instance, a TER, which is more focused on the outcomes 1, 2, and 3, and the others on later ones, is that fine? Or does each TEO or TER need to tick off all 11 outcomes?
No, okay, maybe let me put it this way. The whole essence is to indicate the competency. And let's use outcome 1, 2, and 3. Outcome 1 is about the define, investigate, and analyze. How was this investigated and how was it analyzed? And you know, the methodology behind it. And that information, how was it used in terms of either the design or to develop a solution towards that? And hence they are pegged together to say group A, problem solving. In outcome 3, it's about the comprehension of the application of the knowledge that one gained to show that what I've gained from the theories or the principles from my studies and something outside or experience that I have, how has it aided me to be able to do that work of the investigating, design, and analyzing, and the design or developing the solution in that regard. So preferably is that if that it's done together for group A, then it assists because the assessors can follow from outcome 1, 2, 3, how 1, 2, and 3, how did this follow each other to get there? But it's not always possible. We normally get cases whereby you find in period 7, the person was able to then get the define, analyze, and solve but they never went further with that one. When you get to outcome 2, it's something different from period 5, for example, that is in the TER. Now, the assessor needs to apply their mind in terms of that. You cannot fault the applicant because it's not their own doing that they will start the work from beginning to the end to cover what ECSA is doing. What you need to remember when we do the training to them is that no work out there is ready for ECSA registration. Is what the applicant takes out of that work to use to the advantage that it matches the outcome for ECSA. So it is in that relation. Hence I said it's an art of what is presented. And don't shoot yourself as an applicant in the foot. Use information that is not going to aid you. So it does not. It will be preferable that it is done in that way. So in terms of where though it is ideal that it can be done, then fair enough, it's like that. But those that do not do, they must not shy away and think that they are not going to be catered or covered for that.
Okay, so don't randomly add fluff, but if you can cover all the outcomes, then it's best to cover all the outcomes in the TEOs.
Yes, but the whole idea, that's why what the assessors do when they read, they first read the engineering report and they read backwards. Then they look in outcome 1, for example, to say in outcome 1 is reference to period 7. What has been done in period 7 to do that? Then they go to outcome 2 is period 1. They go to outcome 3 is period 4, for example, and then they correlate it. So if there's no correlation, and that's why I say very, very important, when the TR or the TFO they are complete, they are completed at that time, they must be done at the same time because they talk to each other. And many times you can clearly see that this was not done because there's no correlation. Although the reference is made, but it's not talking to what has been done prior. There's a certain way of writing. As I said, it's an art of writing and making sure that from there I'm limited to explain the work that I've done. But when I get here, so in a TER, it's like you indicate what has been done and that the parameters that are given. But when it gets to the engineering report, is where, and I'm very careful using this word, is where the applicant brag in terms of indicating their competency now, taking from that definition or explanation, because the criteria there is different. It guides the methodology of what has been done, whereby in the TR is the training experience report. What training and experience did you gain here? In the engineering report is the how part of it. How was that gained and how is that now being applied in terms of that? So you'll see all of those. Like, for example, group B is about the impact of the engineer. I mean, it's about the managing of the work that has been done. The impact comes in group C as well. So they've been classified as such purposefully so to elevate them, to make sure that if you look at these two outcomes, if they can go together, fine. For example, outcome 4 about managing yourself and managing other people, and outcome 5 is about communication. It's the managing of doing the work. So hence they go hand in. So the people that you manage, you communicate with them. Hence 4 and 5 are together. When you get to group C, about the impact of engineering work, it will be about looking at that part of the financial, the social, cultural impact of the work that you do, and also applying the regulatory framework that is there. For example, the laws that are there and the bylaws that are there. Hence, they are classified together in that way. Now, moving further to Group D in terms of acting ethically, sound judgment, and taking responsibility, they've classified as such to say, now when you apply the code of conduct, your ethical part in doing the work, making a sound judgment and making responsibility, it has to be in the same realm. So it does not necessarily connect to the previous, but if it was in an ideal world, it would have been easy to use one project as such that it can be done as such, but we know that it's not possible. So it's more a part of showing your competence, where did you gain? And hence they say the activities, if you check all the outcome, they talk about engineering activities. During our registration in the late 2000, early 2000, it was more about a project. Now, what is a project? There's no way that the employer will allow you to start the project from beginning to the commission. Sometimes it's not possible. Multinational companies, I work for a multinational company whereby you only do a small part of storm design, stormwater design, then it is taken to contract management. The other people will do the road, the pavement design, others will do the traffic. So you never get to do everything in there. You only specialize in that small part. But with the arrangement that they had, they will rotate you. So some companies is not possible. Some with them is possible. So ECSA said that they're not going to disadvantage the applicant because of things that they don't have control over in their workplace. And hence anything and everything that indicates the achievement of the outcome in whatever manner, it is allowed. And what I like about that, they are not saying you must be in industry. There's no word industry. You must be in construction. You must be in consulting. You must be in whatever. That is not proof that how did you achieve the outcome in terms of engineering principles. Full stop. That's how it is. Is it assisting?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thanks. It actually also ties in with one of the questions that's a bit further down, which says, if I use 4 different projects for my engineering report, is that okay? And I think
yes.
what we're understanding is yes.
Yes. Yeah. It is about the activity that was done in that project that at that time suits that outcome.
Yes. Then the fairly straightforward one, I think, for the initial professional development courses, you obviously fill them in on the page. Is it necessary to also include copies of the certificates you get from those courses?
No. Remember, it's not necessary. Remember, it's easy for ECSA to check. So those that are accredited is very easy to find out. Even if that's why I'm saying it's very important to indicate that this was a self-study. This was this way. Yes, what they do ECSA as well, they do an audit now and then, but they know because you signed a code of conduct, a pledge of a code of conduct. And the code of conduct is for registered people. Now, who are registered people? Both candidates and professionals are registered people. The moment you are a candidate, you're a registered person. It's just that you're a candidate. That's why you get that letter to say, here's the code of conduct that needs to be done. I'm also serving in the investigating committee at ECSA. And then we've had situations whereby we have to look at the improper conduct of the people that are candidates because they are registered. They fall under the code of conduct. So they know that in good faith, there's no way that one is going to take a chance and lie. As I said, our village is very small. Our profession is like a village. We know each other. We know what is happening. And things that are not related or don't make sense will be picked up quite easily. Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, then there was a question, but you've answered it, about the overall number of pages that the one applicant has is 58. Is this a problem? 50. And I think you said yes, stick to 50, make it under 50.
Yeah, Tim, let me tell you what comes a challenge. If you've got 5 applications to assess and they are all 100 pages, it becomes tedious. So if maybe it goes over by 52 pages, yeah, well, look at it. It's not all the applications, but if they start now to be like that, but also it goes back to say what information has been supplied. You find people making the application so thick with they attended Autodesk CAD 4.1 something. It's not necessary to append. Once you write it there, it's fine. So because they eat up your application, the core part where it's supposed to be appended is not appended.
Okay, so a little bit of leeway is okay, but
yes,
definitely don't put in random extra things just to make it look better.
Yes.
And try and stick to the 50 wherever possible. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then Yes. Okay. So I'm now doubling back to Charlotte's second question, which was regarding when you are an engineer writing the engineering report for PRNG application. She said you've seen there are two different ways she's often seen people write it up. The one is on outcome based, and the other one is on stage based. I think Charlotte, maybe just repeat that question of yours.
Thanks, Tim. Yes, that was my question. I just wanted to ask Mr. Jones if there is a preference or ECSA doesn't really care as long as you address the outcomes.
Well, ECSA cares about everything, Charlotte. It's remember, they'll be able to deduce the information that you have written there. That does it make? I always say when you read, before you submit an application, Charlotte, it must make sense to you. You can imagine about the people that are reading your philosophy that they don't know where it comes from and they don't understand it. It's making it even matters worse. But who's been delayed in the process is you as the applicant. So write it in such a way that it is, put yourself in the shoes of the next person who's going to read it, that when I read this, will I be able to pick up or be able to correlate what is in there. I normally give advice to those that I mentor that write it down that way and leave it for a day. Go back to it tomorrow, go through it and submit and send it back to me. Then they always take a week. I said, why? I said, no, we picked up the mistakes that are there. I said, that's the best way to go through it. So you write it down, leave it there, correlate it. Thanks for the thumbs up, Phil. And then because it's your own work, it must reflect on you. The moment there's a challenge in terms of a simple thing of writing, it reflects back on it's your reflection that you are unable to sell yourself, you are unable to present yourself. Now more questions come. If this person is unable to follow these simple rules or guidelines that are written in an application form and the competency standards, what about the work that the person is doing? So there comes now a digging more deeper to the applicant. You follow? So you're at that level whereby you are now wanting to become a professional. You must act like a professional and then take, like errors that are the simple mistakes, that the spellings, the things are not correlated. Period 1 is repeated twice. It's no period 3. All of those kind of things. They leave a little or to be desired because you are being matched at a certain level. It's what are you doing in your workplace? So please, whatever that you write, either stage, process, or outcome based, is it meeting the requirements? That's where the key is.
Okay, that's perfect. There's one more written one, then I'm going to double back to Loata. So on
Thanks so much.
on the TERs, is it okay if, especially on the nature of the problem section, if you put in a picture, a photo, or do we not want any photos in TERs?
The more the merrier. There's a saying that a picture says 1,000 words. The more the merrier. Whatever tool that you can use, they are not prescriptive. Whatever that you can, remember, you are presenting your information to, and I always use the word convince. It's not to convince, but to show your competence. Do it in any manner that it can. It's not prescriptive. It will be more accommodated. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, now can we hop to, I do see there's another written question, but let's do Loata first. She's been waiting, and then I will shuffle back to the written questions.
Okay, thank you. In the form, where we have to put our tertiary engineering qualification, underneath in that table of the subject passed, year obtained, and marks obtained. In bracket, it says if available. So I want to understand that, just clarify, if we don't have the marks, it's not a deal breaker. We won't be penalized.
Yeah, let me just give the background of where that is coming from, because we've got international people that apply at ECSA. For example, we've got in the past National University of Science and Technology in Zimbabwe. They don't put, they've got a range of saying if you passed with a 45 to 54 is a P. If you pass with a 55 to a 60 is 2.2. Those kind of things. So they are not real marks. So it was to cover everybody. Other people study international, they come with a C and they give a range of what is there. So if you've got the marks, rather put the marks that are there. But it was to cover everybody who's applying.
So if you don't have the marks, it's, if you don't have your transcript and you are going to run out of time to go back to the university and ask for your transcript, and you don't really have the courses that you did for your 4 years,
Lerato,
does that reflect badly?
No, it cannot be blank. That's the simple answer. It has to be completed, either in whatever manner that it can be. The reason why they don't want that you include all those other things, because sometimes we've seen an academic record of 13 pages that it eats up in your application as well. So what you need to do, ask for a statement of symbols. They only show those that you pass, then maybe it's 1 page and you can ask for it. But being blank is a non-compliance. And it's not about the assessors or the ECSA administrators. It is about the auditors that audit ECSA. And also when International Engineer Alliance come and do the review for ECSA, ECSA can lose signatory status to the IEA because of that, because it's a non-compliance. And when imagine that your application is sent back and forth because you were unable to get the marks from the university, which you can get, or wherever you studied. That is an easy thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, Holofelo.
Hi, I wanted to ask if ECSA can penalize you if, let's say for repetitiveness. So let's say you've got a repetition of words on the TER and on the ER. So sometimes because you're taking from the TER, you'll be writing some of the stuff on the ER and expanding it more. But there might be some of the words that are sort of repeated.
Although I don't understand the question, they will never penalize you for that. Remember, the request in the TER is different compared to what is requested in the criteria in the engineering report.
Okay, I think I did.
Yes.
And then on my second question is that on outcomes 1 and 2, what I realized is it's about the problem and the solution, right? And so I wanted to know that there's a problem on the project itself is a problem, right? So is that all we write, or do we also add the problems that we encountered on site, say an issue with the rebar or an issue with excavation, whatever the case may be? Is that what you guys are looking for, ECSA is looking for?
Yeah, it's not about the project, it's about the activity that is in the project. Yes.
100%.
Thank you.
Tim, can I just come in here and say something, if you don't mind? And it's come up today, it's come up over the last few months, and it's come up through my whole life as a sort of mentor to thousands. You have to read the standards. You can't come into these programs and expect to get the answers short and quickly from these webinar sessions. You have to take the time to read the guidelines and the standards and the policies. ECSA puts an enormous amount of time and effort into this, and they're there for a very, very specific reason. And the challenge is that everybody wants to sort of bypass it and just get a quick answer. So please, you have to invest in this. That's why the submission readiness, the survey we sent out to you specifically, didn't just ask you about how many engineering reports you're writing or how many TEOs you're going to do, etc. It specifically asked you to confirm. Have you read RO2? Have you read RO3? Have you read RO4? Have you read RO5? And that's very, very specific, because it gives us a level or a sense of comfort that you and your mentors understand it. And so if you're an engineer or a technologist, or technician, you need to understand table 1. You need to understand what is expected at degree of responsibility, A to E, what kind of language you're going to be using. Just exactly as Jones is sort of highlighting right now, you really, really, really need to understand this stuff, and you need to have read it and analyzed it, and not be, and with greatest respect, not be asking questions at a very basic level here with very senior people at ECSA. Please read the documentation. It's all very clearly spent out. Kim, sorry, I probably wasn't going to be as brutal. You weren't going to be as brutal as me, but it is just really critical to get you there. Our job is to get you consolidated and get you across. Your mentor's job is to make sure that you understand the journey, you've read the documentation, and that you are ready. And we can then get you over the line. But the basics you need to be able to do with your mentor. Kim, back to you.
100%. There's a separate question here, then it's Charlotte again, and then I'm just going to do back to the text. The separate question is, obviously you need your supervisor to assign your TERs, However, if your supervisor is not registered, but your supervisor's supervisor is registered, for want of a better phrase, so sort of 2 steps up, do you then let that person sign, because they still know what you're doing, so and they're happy to sign the TER? Is that okay?
Tim, the only person that is requested to be registered is the referee.
Okay.
Yep.
So
the supervisors cannot, they can be people who are not registered, but in engineering, there's nothing wrong with it. It's only the referees that needs to be registered. And you saw that if you don't have one who's registered, you can have submission of extra people and so on. So it's not that it's a guideline that is been given. We know that it's not always easy to have registered people and to have people that maybe vouch to assist you or that own you. For example, I'll give you an example of what we normally see. These referees, 3 of them or 2 of them, they talk this applicant so bad that this person is so useless that cannot do anything. But the person, when you look, is 4, 5, 6 years with the company. Then you ask your question, why is this person still being employed by this company? Reason being, if this person get registered, they might leave the company. So then the assessors also apply their mind and the process go on from what has been submitted. Go to the professional review, the applicant excels. So the referee part has been left out because of that, because we also apply our mind looking at this. And there's a challenge that we have there. Yes. So there was another question, Tim, before that is very interesting on the chart from, is it Nadira Balim Patel?
That's what I was going to double back, but go for it. Answer it now. Yep.
Yeah, it says if you have junior or team of juniors working with you, and they are now doing the tasks such as reviewing as-builts, drawing or design, calcs, and you are checking them, but you are still making the design decision, how do you record them? Same as the way you wrote it. So that's where it comes now, that you are not doing the calculations yourself. You've got a team that you check, and you need to indicate that you are applying your engineering knowledge in terms of checking them in every situation, wherever you go. I normally even use the example of the people that designed some other cars that were burning in the country. Those professors or the people that designed those cars. But for our vehicles to be kept on running on the road, are those technicians or artisans that service them every now and then. So we'd rather register that person, not that designer with a PhD. You follow where it's going now. So the people that for the drawing or the work that has been done or the calculation by the client body or the contractors to read what the philosophy of a designer or an engineer, consulting engineer did. They have to apply engineering knowledge to understand it. So they've applied it, they've developed a solution, but they never did any calculation. So it's not that if you don't have calculation, you'll be segregated or you'll be discriminated against. It is how you write it down to show that you applied engineering knowledge in carrying out the work. Thanks, Tim.
That's perfect, thanks. Okay, Charlotte, you were the next hand up, go for it.
Thanks, Tim. I have a question. So I don't know maybe if it was answered, but you can just guide me. So I've had a few of my mentees that have changed jobs and they never got their TR signed in their previous companies. Now they've left and they're struggling to get them signed. How does ECSA deal with that? Thanks.
It doesn't matter. It's either, Charlotte, you go for a sworn affidavit, that you write an affidavit of what happened. With that over, then the people, remember the work that you have done. When you say to your supervisor that I've done this kind of work and you've been working with them where you are currently, they can take ownership thereof in terms of signing that off. So if they don't want to, then you have to put an affidavit as well, because we know many people wherever they are working, it's not that every day they are completing the TER so that one day when they leave, they will need that. It happens a lot. So as I've said, the work that we have done somewhere, the person who's working with you will be able to see that this I have done. But if it's something that does not make sense, they'll also pick that up as well, and they will not be able to vouch for that. Remember, you build up your experience as you go along. So do not be worried about the signature. It's more about your experience, that competency that you build up over the years. There are ways and means to get around that affidavit, or the people that work with you, they vow to sign. And they write there that this applicant or the candidate is unable to get the previous signatures of the work that they did, but by reading from what they have done, then I'm able to sign it off, to sign this TER that they've done this work. At that stage, it was still at the junior stage. You're still building up your career. Where you are now, you've got people with you as well. So don't be afraid that you limit yourself not to apply because you don't have contact with the previous people. Thanks, Tim. Does it assist, Charlotte?
Yeah,
thank you.
no, that's
See the thumbs up. Yeah.
Nkululeko?
Thank you. Hi, Tim. I just have a question here. Let's say I have on my TER, I have 5 periods. And then from period 1 to 2, there's a gap of 3 months. And maybe from 2 to 3, there's a gap of 6 months. Let's say that gap is when your project is done and then you are waiting for the other one to kick in. But then you go to the office and assist. So, but from period 3 to 5, that one is fixed. There's no gap. I think you can say you've worked there for more than 6 years on those 3 periods. So there's no gap. So I'm trying to get away. How does one slot like show that three months gap and the 6 months that you were at the office? Because when I look at the TER, like if I insert another page and try to put it in, whatever I did doesn't answer all answer all the questions that are there on the TER. So I just want to know, how do I slot it in? Or I go to the last page of the report, there's training and experience summary. So I don't know if I needed to. Pardon?
Do you see what is on the screen, Nonkuleko?
I want you to close that curtain. Who opened it?
Yes.
Just close it.
Kagiso,
Yes,
Mahlangu, please mute. Thank you. Do you see what is on what here?
Yes.
Not active. So you'll indicate that you see the X there. So then you'll indicate that if it has to slot in, then you'll indicate that as well. When an applicant is not engaged in training and experience towards registration, there the period must be reflected as follows. So this is just a guide. You can take this. If it was there, then you slot it in there. You see, and if it gets there, you see this. So the TES will define that, but there's nothing you can write in the TER. But when they read the TER, they'll read here as well. Can you see the importance of correlation? Then they'll be able to pick that up.
Oh, okay. No, I see
So,
it now.
yeah, it goes back, reading is there when you are not active.
Oh no, I saw that one, but I was not sure because I was like, okay, I did few of the BOQs, so how do I try to explain what I was busy with? Yeah, okay.
Okay, problem solved. Okay,
Yes.
then. Thank you.
Okay, there's just a comment about, we've got quite a lot of people who are joining in on this call who are going on the alternative route or academic route. I don't know if they've got any questions that they want to ask in addition to things that have been mentioned, because there's not been a lot of commentary on those. Don't see any hands going up at the moment.
Thanks, Kim. I was wondering if maybe Tom, being so close to it, and also Friedrich working with the guys on their mock interviews and their project defenses and things like that. I'm really concerned that the MTM guys don't feel alienated here because of the different routes, and so that if they don't have any questions, Tom, while we've got Jones in the house and we've got the assembled. It's such a fantastic opportunity. Friedrich or Tom, anything that we can ask Jones on behalf of the MTM and or the academic guys that you feel is relevant?
So Phil, I think Jones has confirmed that the academic assessment or development of the knowledge areas, the form that drives Rob insane, the EDR form, at the moment will be required as part of the applications by Calvin, Trevor, Justin, etc., etc., etc. And the reason for that is that the alternative is to go via the E17P process, where they will basically be given the same outcome, particularly if they have no incomplete qualifications from a tertiary institution. So I think what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to offline just work with Jones and maybe use Calvin's, who's the most populated, as a test case for us to get Jones to review it and say, look, yes, this is exactly what is expected, but it's effectively showing how you've acquired the knowledge, mathematics, physics, etc., to do the work that you do. Doesn't mean you've got to be able to prove the same number of credits in each of the knowledge areas, but I think that's what Jones demonstrated in his presentation. It should eventually be either part of the E17P process or part of an RPL process, if that's the route that's going to be going. But we don't have the time for that, so let's just live with it where it is and get it populated and submitted for those 7 MTM candidates that are impacted by it.
100%, Tom. I wanted to specifically, I see Rob's got a hand up. Thanks, Rob, for coming in. I specifically wanted to, and I'm glad you chose Kelvin, because I was going to suggest that as well. And the reason, we're doing Takalani as a dry run on a mock interview. It would be great if we could have a session with Jones and Friedrich and Kim and do Kelvin on the as the most populated and over by 8 pages sort of response, which would be a really good benchmark to see where we're gonna have a challenge. So thanks for that, Tom. I see something. Rob's, you got a hand up. Sorry, Kim, back to you.
Yeah.
Well, we might as well go for it.
Okay. Tom, I think you've actually spelled it out very nicely there, that we need to preferably have a session with Jones on this whole EDL format. The other thing, I just want I'm very pedantic when I need clarification on the 50 pages. If you look at the basic application form, it's already 32 pages without putting a word to it. Does that, I'll ask the question of a lot of people this morning, does that application 50 pages include or exclude the explanatory notes? Number one, does it exclude the referee submissions? Exactly what does the 50 pages mean? Thanks.
Yeah, I can answer it there easy, Rob. Remember, the referee report will come separate, so you don't know how many pages will they add on. So it's not part of, it's what you submit, inclusive of all those attachments. What they are saying is that do not include information that is unnecessary and be concise and to the point with what you are submitting. If you check, there's no way that you'll go even more than 40 pages if you write that correctly. That's why there's a limitation and say in the criteria 100 pages. I just reviewed one of my colleague's application form. He had 300 words per criteria. And I said, some of this information is irrelevant, what you've put there. A simple thing. They say in outcome, if you check, for example, outcome 1.1, I mean, outcome 1, where they refer in the engineering report, it refers to it's about the define, investigate, and analyze. The 1.1 says, state how you performed or contributed in defining engineering problems leading to an agreed definition of the problem to be solved. The project was based in Lephalale. It was ESCOM. ESCOM is the only monopoly in the country. That's not what the thing is asking. It says state how you performed or contributed. Much of the information that is written is not relevant. In every outcome, start to give the brief of the outcome. Remember, this has already been written already somewhere in the TER, and that's the reason why it must be written there as well. But here, go direct into the point. State how you performed or contributed in investigating. You just go direct there. There were four men on the job, 3 engineers. Some of them were. That's not what this is asking about. Already, you are missing the point. And when the assessors read, I don't want to say along the way they start to read with a final reading now. But where is this leading to? Describe how you designed or developed solutions. You go direct to that. Yes.
Trying to understand fully that.
Thank you.
My question is more specific. The application form has a lot of explanatory notes and all sorts of stuff. Are you talking about 50 pages of completed pages, excluding?
Yes. No, including the attachments, including whatever
No, Jones. I think what Rob is asking is that if you look at all the guidance that's given in the application form, that in itself, before you populate it, is 5 or 6 pages. But my understanding is you can delete all of that information.
Yes.
You don't need to keep the guidance there, Rob. So you leave it there, write your report, get it ready, and then delete all the stuff that's not related to your application. The guidance is just there to help you fill the form in. It's not part of the completed submission.
Exactly, Tom. Now I get it now. Yes, and like for example, if you don't have the TEO, you don't have the EDR, remove them from the application. Only stick to what you have to submit. There's no way that you'll have all of them in the application form. It's either this or that.
And it excludes the referee forms.
Yes, it excludes that was a question of, does it exclude the referee forms? And yes,
yes. It's what comes from you. The referee form is something else that will be submitted by the referees. Yes, it excludes them because you don't know, you don't have control of how much are they going to write. Yes.
Jones, another thing we must observe is that if you go and you do a submission and there is a particular complex problem you solved where you've got drawings and or information, you can show that stuff during the interview, the professional interview. Don't include it in the application. Reference the project, show something that's relevant, but don't go and include a 30-page report that you wrote on how to resolve hydraulic jump of the Victoria Falls or whatever it is.
Yes, spot on, Tom. Thank you.
Right, that answers the question. I think we'll put a lot of people's minds at ease.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to, I know we're out of time, but there's one more text question here, which I just want to ask. If there's a time gap of 9 to 10, I assume, years between getting your diploma and your BTEC, when you are writing the TERs and the TEOs, which experience do you cover? Are you allowed to include that after the diploma, or can you only include experience after you've completed your BTEC?
Yeah, remember, here is much easier. Along the way with the progression of the work, hence, let me just maybe say it this way. The benchmark for technician is diploma plus 3 years minimum experience inside the 3 years with 1 year of experience at level E, responsible engineering. But the people who do not have the BTEC, they can still apply with a diploma, and the requirement is now 8 years experience and 5 years experience inside the 8 years where the person was operating at the higher level of a technologist with that one. So one has to look into that. It's not about a time frame between the two. It's where did you operate? You might find that we find people that operated at the technologist level for the past years with a diploma. They only got the BTEC last year. Now they don't have to wait for the 3 years minimum after the BTEC. They continue with the diploma as well. So in that, I take it that in that 10-year gap, with a diploma, with the progression, you were able to operate at the higher level of a technologist. So then you can submit both, but the assessors will apply their mind and say, this person's BTEC does not mean the minimum, but when you look at there's a more than 8 years and 5 years in there, then they use the diploma to ready, then it goes through.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm not seeing any other questions currently in the chat or hands up. Yes, Phil?
We've got Johan Pienaar, who's in our M4S team here, who is, as you know, very, very experienced. Jones probably knows, and they know each other.
Very well,
we're going to be using Johan with the ECSA ladies, because Johan's comfortable with people coming through the traditional route. He's less comfortable with the alternative route, as you know. And we want to start getting going with the ECSA ladies. I wanted to give Johan an opportunity just to, has he got any questions that he would like to clarify with Jones, or would Jones like to say hi to Johan, or is there anything that we can just clarify that we can get going next week? Johan and Jones, over to you.
Hi Johan, how are you?
Fine, thanks, Jones. It's good to hear your voice after all these years.
Yes, thanks so much, Johan.
No, it was a very good presentation, very comprehensive.
Thank you.
The only thing maybe I can add is the professional growth from levels A to E. That will sort itself out when you get to the end of your period of experience. So what I sometimes find is when an application comes in, the applicant writes quite a number of pages on his earlier part of his experience, and that's not, that is at the lower level. Rather concentrate on the latter part of your experience. I'm talking about people with 5 or more than 5 or 10 years of experience. So that's the only thing I can maybe add. Not that Jones has explained it wrongly. Thanks, Jones. It was good to speak to you.
Good to speak to you too, Johan. Great.
Okay, so just to answer the question from, there was a question from one of the EWC ladies, is that now that we've got the submission readiness audit come in that I was sort of showing you very briefly, I'm going to go through it with Tom and the ladies that have, and as well as the MTM guys and girls, the ones that have given us the complete information, and we know that you got mentors, supervisors, referees intact. And then, so Kim, the last thing I want to say is a serious request, and we have to do this for the benefit of those who've done it properly. There should be no excuse or reason for bad English, bad spelling, bad grammar, bad report writing. You've got Grammarly, you've got access to GPT, etc. So the moment you give our very, very scarce resources applications where there's poor English, poor grammar, poor spelling, and it obviously hasn't been verified for someone, we're just going to send it back. We're not going to teach people how to do report writing. And I have to say that because you have the tools available for you to write brilliant reports. So please use Grammarly, please use spell checker, please use Grammarly and the editing function, use ChatGPT within the constraints, etc., etc. Whatever you need to get to write short, sharp, succinct, beautiful prose for your applications, and then we will then start collecting the submissions next week, and then we'll get time with Johan to start going through it, and so we will get that process going. Kim, I see Rob's got a hand up, but otherwise back to you, Kim, and then you can close out with Tom if you want. Thank you.
Just a very quick thing about the grammar and the ChatGPT and all the rest of it. Most of it comes in Americanese. Please make sure you convert it to your local language.
I completely agree. I spend quite a lot of time changing Z's back to S's again when I'm looking at things. But I think that is it for all of the questions. I think from my side, Jones, thank you very much. You'll see there are a couple of comments coming in saying how wonderful the session's been and how much people have appreciated and enjoyed it. It's been extremely informative. So I think everybody has really benefited from it. So we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants to Tommy, I don't know if you want to say anything, but yeah.
Just a last comment. So you would have heard in Jones's presentation that he referenced RO2 STA, which is the standard for registration. There's no RO2 STA alternative route, RO STA academic route. The outcomes are the same irrespective of where you've gone, what route you're taking via the Table Mountain or the cable car or whatever. The only difference obviously is whether you are registering as PR Eng and therefore complex, PR Tech Eng therefore broadly defined, or technician therefore well defined, is the kind of evidence that you will have in terms of your work exposure to have achieved those outcomes. So there's no such a thing as a different way of meeting the outcomes. You have to meet the same outcomes irrespective of your route. And I think Jones will agree, if you read RO2 carefully, and Phil has repeatedly said it, look at the words, go to the RO8 document that was also referenced, and you'll find all the right nuances that are available for you to use in your own reports. And then less is more. The less you write and the more succinct you're writing, the more you will be able to sell yourself to the assessor, who will then say, this person knows what they're doing. They clearly are able to operate at level E, and therefore they are registrable, and it will be a straightforward process. But you have to believe. If you don't believe in your own ability, you're never going to convince 3 people in a panel that they should believe you.
Exactly.
Tom, I think in the RO2 documents, the extensive work that X has put into writing the competency indicators and the range statements up for the 3 different categories is like it's like a paint by numbers thing, and I'm concerned that people sometimes are just not reading that. And what I suggest to when I'm talking to people is you split your screen with the little arrows, the little Microsoft Paw, and on the left hand side you have the RO2 document, and if you're a technologist you have the RO2 document up with the table towards the back. It's around about page 30 kind of thing, and on the right hand side you have your TER or your engineering report up, and then you just look at, if I'm writing this, does it talk to something over here? And let me look, and then I scan up to table 1 and I see what level am I writing this at? Okay, so I must use contributed, or I must use participated, or I must use, performed or whatever. Okay, let me scan down to table 5 or whatever it is. And I look at that and I say, okay, am I doing this? Was this little bit of traffic engineering? Does it talk to anything here? It's actually not a difficult process, but people are too used to asking for help as opposed to just following the clues. They're all there. So that's my last little bit.
Right, I think that's a wrap, Jones. Friedrich's got a hand. Friedrich, my brother, also from a different mother.
And all colleagues in a meeting. I've sat in a meeting now and I've listened, and then I conclude a few very simple things that we've said a number of times. Please read the instructions. And the instructions are not in one document. There are several guides that you need to read. ECSA documents are so clear. If you can read, you can do it. For example, the number of words. Next point, next simple point. When you say, I've designed it, it doesn't mean, the word design doesn't mean a thing. You need to explain the methodology. That's how simple it is. Then when you write, use the terminology applicable to the field that you are working. For example, if you're working transportation engineering and you design a road, you need to refer to the level of service, or you need to refer to the functional class of a road. If you work on pavements, you need to be able to talk about the E80 loading or something like that, or shallow or deep pavements, or the material that you're using. Asset management, the factors affecting the performance of your asset. If you refer to structures, you need to refer to applicable loadings and what is making the load so high and the bending moments. So you can't just refer to general things. It has to be extremely specific. And the more specific you are, the less you're going to write, and the easier you're going to stick to the 100 words or the how many words you are. Then don't change the format of the forms. The assessors, and I get these forms, and they look different. Everyone looks different. Now, why are they looking different? They should all be the same. Then the sooner you start, the quicker and the easier the preparation will be. So for every time that you start, and I'm talking to people who are, some are young and some are more experienced, please follow the routes. Now I'm going to use a total different example. We all pay tax. What do? We do exactly what the taxman asks us. So why do we want to change what ECSA is asking us? ECSA is measuring your ability to be a professional in your field. So read what they need, do what they ask, and do that to the quality of what is required. Sorry, I think it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Spot on. Thanks, Friedrich.
Well, I think that's a wrap. Jonesy, thanks once again for your very eloquent way of explaining complicated legal mumbo jumbo that ECSA likes to subject us to in simple layman's terms.
Thank you so much,
I'm
Tom.
fairly sure everybody gained not only one or two things, but many things. And Friedrich, you've summed it up at the end a lot more eloquently than what Phil and I tried to do, where we just generally kick the door down and barge in. But thank you very much. Jones, we'll chat some more with you again on Monday and in all the other corridors that we bump shoulders in on a regular basis. Thanks, Kim, for jumping in with the questions. And thanks to everybody for your attendance, and do have a good night, and we'll see you all again the next session. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jones. That was brilliant.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.